Day at Work Kentucky presents Myths and Facts about Hiring People with Disabilities, featuring Dr. Phillip Rumrill.
I'm Phil Rumrill. I'm a professor of counselor education at the University of Kentucky, and I'm the director of research in the Human Development Institute, or HDI. The issue in labor force participation for people with disabilities is one of opportunity. It is not one of desire or motivation. Just for example, we know that the employment to population ratio for working age people with disabilities in America right now is 40.4%. So all working age people with disabilities, about 40%, are engaged in employment. For non-disabled people, that figure right now in our full employment economy is 77%. Okay, that's not good enough. People without disabilities are twice as likely to be working right now than are people who have disabilities. So one explanation for that might be that people with disabilities lack the desire to work. Well, of all the people with disabilities right now who are not currently employed, 75% of them say they would like to be working, and 80% of them believe they have the ability to work. So we go from a 40% rate of labor force participation, that's a decided minority of people in the population who are employed, but a decided majority of them feel they can work and say they would like to work. We also know that 70% of people who receive supplemental security income benefits or Social Security disability insurance benefits from the Social Security Administration say they would prefer to be working over receiving disability benefits. Another is the idea that workplace accommodations for people with disabilities are too extensive, meaning there's too many of them, or they're too expensive, they cost too much. Again, facts would suggest it just simply isn't the case. We know, for example, that only about 1/3 of all workers with disabilities in America use any accommodations at all. Most workers with disabilities either self-accommodate or don't need any accommodations. And of all workers with disabilities who use accommodations of any kind, the average number of accommodations they use is 1.8. So not all that many, not all that extensive with a T. The most common form of accommodation that workers with disabilities request nationwide is scheduling modifications. And the second most common is the opportunity for flexibility in where work is performed. Our friends at the Job Accommodation Network tell us that about 57%, more than half of all accommodations used by workers with disabilities cost nothing at all to implement. And of the 43% of those accommodations that do bear some cost, the average cost is just over $500, about $517 in fact. And employers find a $517 investment in keeping a good worker employed over a period of time, rather than engaging the high costs of turnover. They see that as a very good investment. We don't have to spend much time convincing employers that accommodations are worth it. It's very easy to demonstrate how those costs truly are reasonable, as the term reasonable accommodation implies. So we know the information that would dispel these myths, but they do persist, and we need to do a better job of communicating what the facts really are to employers and to coworkers. Those are some of the opportunities that we get really excited about. We think an increased recognition on the part of employers that disability is not just a cost center for them, although there are costs associated with disability, but it's an element of human variation. It's a naturally occurring and therefore normal part of the human experience, and we have to accommodate that in the way that we do other aspects of people's lives. There's nothing really mysterious about disability. It's just people are made, differently, and they vary, and things like height and weight and ability and vision and hearing and immune functioning and all of those things, they vary among people, and everyone is different. So if we're treating people as individuals based on what they're bringing to the table and all of their circumstances, not on their diagnostic labels or perceptions we have about their limitations, we've got a lot more potential to actualize this dream of a fully inclusive workforce. It's the awareness of accommodation strategies. It's literally, what do we do? What kinds of accommodations might someone need? And sometimes we like to help the workers prepare to request accommodations from their employer, but that presupposes that they know what their needs are and what accommodations might help them. Employers also tell us they're not sure how to communicate with employees about their disability status. So when someone discloses the disability, the employer doesn't know if they're supposed to follow up on that, whether they're violating people's rights to privacy, disability etiquette kinds of considerations. How do people want to be addressed in terms of their disability status? So from the employer point of view, it's information about how to address disability issues, it's knowing how to communicate, and it's understanding the phenomenon of attitude formation as it applies to disability and how that affects people with and without disabilities in the workplace. Those are the keys. Every lost day of work for your workforce, every time someone calls in sick, takes a personal day, goes out for a week on medical leave or whatever it might be, that affects the bottom line in all kinds of ways. You want to create an environment that makes people want to be at work, want to be part of what's happening in the workplace, makes them not want to call in sick. Not only do they show up more when there's a sense of belonging, and I'm talking about all workers here, they're more productive. People do need time off from time to time. But what we want to do is reduce those days lost to illness, injury, or disability as much as we possibly can. There's just a direct cost between how many days are lost to health and mental health concerns and the employer's overall productivity. So employers have to work harder to keep good workers than ever before, and it's more important that they keep those workers because of the requirement for productivity and the fact that workers are very hard to replace. So harder to find and more important to keep is sort of what's happening with human resource and talent acquisition strategies. And we think employers understand that. What we think they need to know, and we need to continue to reinforce with them, if we can start getting involved early in the process to help to minimize those days off that happen in the first place, we can keep people working as long as they wish to do so. That's what most workers want. It's what the employer wants, and it's what makes our economy as strong as it is and will continue to be.
Retain Kentucky is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor and the Social Security Administration under a grant award of $21,600,000 to the Kentucky Office of Employment and Training that will be incrementally provided. 100% of grant funding is from U.S. federal funds. This product does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the U.S. Department of Labor or the Social Security Administration, nor does mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the U.S. government. Please visit us at stayatworkky.org